Hey, and welcome to the Dangerous Creatives podcast. If you're growing your photography or creative business, you're in the right place. Each week, we deliver a workshop-style solo show, expert interview, or motivating story from our community so you can tune in to find encouragement, motivation, and ideas to help the right people find you and your amazing work. I'm your host, Kristen Sweeting. I'm a photographer and coach, and my favorite thing is helping dangerous creatives just like you stand out in a world that just wants us to blend in. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. Hey, and welcome back to the show. We're so excited for today's episode. I have my friend Sophie Kaye on, and we're talking about luxury client experience. We're talking about Bridal Fashion Week and how to get into shooting bridal fashion. She gives some marketing hot takes. Really listen to the end because we have several different little conversations that we go on. I think there's so much really helpful, tangible stuff in this conversation. So make sure you listen to the end and check her out on Instagram and on her website, Sophie Kaye. She's awesome. We're just so glad you're here. A little update for Dangerous Creatives. We are taking our sabbatical in July, although we have some episodes recorded. So don't worry, we're not taking a break from the podcast. But our coaching programs are taking a break. We are going to pick back up in August with Fancy Camp, which is going to be at RT Lodge in Knoxville. So if you want to join us for Fancy Camp, we would love to see you there. We have our last study abroad of the year in Greece in August. And then we're also prepping for a trip to New York City in the fall and filling some of our coaching programs. So if you've been on the fence about either joining us for a trip or wanting some coaching or mentoring, joining one of our programs. We have a mastermind that's starting to fill for next year. We have a couple different programs that you could jump into now. Go to our website, dangerschool.com. You can apply and we will chat with you and see what might be the best fit for you, and give you all the information, all that kind of stuff. So if you're like, hey, I am ready to dive into my business in a new way, I have a new offer I want to create, I want to make this thing more sustainable, or I just know I need support and encouragement, please go ahead to the website, fill out the application, tell us a little bit about you, and we can help figure out what's going to be the most supportive for you. Our clients have incredible results working with us, and we would love to help you on your creative business journey. So go to dangerschool.com. And in the meantime, we're just so glad that you're here and that you are enjoying the podcast. So stay tuned for the episode with Sophie. Well, hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Dangerous Creatives podcast. I'm so excited to have my friend Sophie Kaye on here with me today. We're going to talk bridal fashion. We're going to talk client experience. We're going to talk about being in the wedding industry for a very long time. I'm just really excited. Sophie, I'm glad that you're here, and I can't wait to chat.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for including me. I've been looking forward to it for a long time.
Good. Well, Sophie, I feel like we have so many ways that our lives and careers intersect and things that we care about. And I know right before we started recording, we started talking about just like things that we've learned through traveling and experiences. And I wanted to just kick off the conversation for people who are like, how do I up level this year? What have been some of your biggest inspirations on how to deliver a great customer experience, how to up-level your photography? Like, what are you really loving right now in that space?
I feel like that's ends up being so important because so many times when I'm talking to, photographers that I'm mentoring, I feel like something that comes up pretty frequently is that in the world of digital photography and, profiles and presets and things, it's fairly easy to get a really similar look to a lot of other people. And honestly, I say this all the time. You probably could take like 100 photos from 100 different photographers and put them into one gallery, and it would be really difficult to tell them all apart. But I've found more than anything else that like clients embrace experiences so heavily, just the way that you go above and beyond, like past the photography, not even really how you're delivering their gallery or what's included, but just the way you treat them as a client and the way that they feel that they're like fully involved in your brand. It's funny because I feel like I grew up with a family who went on vacations and, I went on some amazing trips as a kid, but We never really stayed at like the super high end resort hotels. We were much more of the like, let's book an Airbnb and grocery shop our way through a different country. Quite recently, I stayed at a hotel in Ireland. It's called Ballyfin, and I was there with a friend of mine. And we initially had gone because she was talking about how it's a beautiful space and it's not accessible unless you're staying there. And, I have to be honest, at first she reached out to me and was talking about this hotel and was like, yeah, it's like 1,500 a night or 2,000 a night. And at first I was like, oh, there's absolutely no way I can swing that. Like, I can't. And she ended up talking me into it essentially. And it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever done, not only for like the actual day I got to spend there, but the way it made me look at the luxury experience so differently. I feel like I went into it not even knowing that there are ways that you can really like customize your business to each client and make them feel really seen and heard and understood in terms of their priorities and their favorite things. If you ever get the chance to go to this hotel, you absolutely have to. I am still
Yeah.
like not a 5-star person.
Like still thinking about it. No, I'm the same way because I like there's things I don't buy that are super nice. Like I don't buy super expensive cars generally, or like there's certain things that I'm pretty practical about. But when you experience really really great client experience or customer service, you're just blown away. And so I feel like we should like dive into it of what specifics we've noticed, because I think that can be
Yeah.
so helpful when people are like, yeah, but what exactly? And then like, what is it not, you know? So I don't know if you have any like specific things that you really like, you're still thinking about even a year later.
Yeah, I think so. For example, I am absolutely obsessed with this is so specific, but like I love history and art so much. I find it super inspiring. I think that I've always been an art history person, and the interior of this building basically looked like every beautiful estate mansion that you've ever seen pictures of. Like it felt like the most incredible. It felt like we were in a scene out of Bridgerton. And you were allowed to go into these spaces and like just hang out there. And it was the whole idea that like these are locations and interiors that feel like they should be unattainable to you. And you were just allowed to go enjoy them. And the idea that they had spent so much time, they actually hosted a tour every day that you could take that would walk you through the house and tell you about the history of the house and the grounds and everything. And the fact that they had spent so much time and effort into making it feel not only really stunningly beautiful and, something out of like your wildest dreams, but the idea that they made it feel comfortable. So they wanted everyone to feel almost like this was your house for the weekend, and you didn't need to feel like it was an unusual space for you to be in. Basically, everyone that came, they treated them like you were supposed to be there. And I feel like this is something, I say luxury, but honestly, it could be anyone from any price range that you can kind of give clients that idea that like they deserve this, and it's not an unobtainable thing, because even if it's stretching their budget or something that you normally wouldn't do for clients, but so you're going out of your way a little bit, making them feel like it's something that you understand why it's important to them, and you understand that it will add to their experience. That was amazing. I think we walked down for dinner because we stayed there for one night, and they had a piano player playing and everyone changed and dressed for dinner, which I thought was amazing.
Oh,
And there were wood burning fireplaces everywhere, and they brought you like a little menu of dinner drinks that you could have before dinner in one of those beautiful rooms. It just felt like the most amazing, like romanticized experience. I feel like now going back and like trying to pull experiences from that, I'm like, oh wait, I want my clients to feel that catered to and that special, and that like I am excited to work with them, and I'm excited to deliver things that they're excited about too.
yeah. I love that. And I love it because I think there's kind of this stereotype with luxury, or this is how I used to feel at least, is that it was stuck up or, like looked down on other people, or you would feel like I don't belong here. And that never resonated with me. And I similarly had an experience at a really nice hotel. And I'm kind of like a non serious person. we rolled up in a 12-passenger white van and they treated it like it was a Maserati. Like they valeted it like it was any other
Totally.
van. And like we just were so non-serious. My husband snuck like a backpack full of White Claws into the suite. And, every time we showed up, it was Miss Sweeting's party, like they just treated us like we were royalty and we were just like, what? I mean,
Totally.
we were respectful, but we're not fancy people, So I loved that it didn't feel weird for us to be ourselves in that space.
Right. I loved how when you walked in the door, immediately you were treated like every other person that was staying there, regardless of your background and I understand obviously there is always like a financial component to this. You're investing a good amount of money to stay at a hotel like this, but immediately once you pass that barrier to entry, it felt like it didn't matter, how you were dressed. It didn't matter if you wore jeans to dinner. We actually went clay pigeon shooting, which
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I'm from New Jersey. I have never done this in my entire life. And we weren't treated like, oh my God, look at these people who have never gone clay pigeon shooting before. Whereas I'm sure they have people all the time who roll up and like that's their weekend hobby. But it just felt so comfortable being there. And it was amazing. I now feel like every year I need to make an effort to go stay at a similar hotel where like the focus is client experience. Regardless of even the investment, I feel like there are probably a lot of boutique hotels around the world that similarly have the same kind of like dedication to guest experience and like whoever is staying there. It changed my whole perspective of how you can go out of your way to cater to each client and make them feel really, really special about the smallest things. So that was great.
Do you have any specific examples of things that you kind of like took from those experiences and you are using in your photo business or your education business? Either way, because I do think your brand is luxury but cozy, and so I love that people feel very comfortable in your space. So, what are some of those like little things that you've added in that you think make a big difference?
Such a good question. I try to be really available for people. I basically tell them on their consultation call that I am as involved as you want me to be. So I know there are some photographers who have a very clear divide between their personal life and their business life. And I feel like I take plenty of time for myself and maintain like a strict line so that it doesn't feel like it takes over my life. But at the same time, my clients are welcome to text me. They're welcome to email me at any time. I don't get mad if they send me a text at 2 a.m. I'll just respond to it when I get up. I'm fine if they want to ask me questions about how their dress will photograph or do I have any recommendations for florals? Or the question I get a lot is like how to make the reception feel as luminous in their gallery as the rest of the day. Because I think a lot of times people will book me because they love how like natural light is really important in my photos. And so of course they naturally think like, oh, once the sun goes down, are we going to lose that really pretty glow, that romantic vibe? And I'm happy to walk them through like ways that I feel like I've seen that really benefit a reception, whether it's like more airy florals or more low to the table centerpieces or something like that. I just think that people like feeling that you're reliable and easy to access and that you'll go out of their way for them. So I've gotten really great feedback on that. I also think that people love knowing that you share interests. I have a lot of clients who are like, I really want to be friends. And after their wedding, they're always like, can we still talk to each other? Can we still
Yeah.
be friends? And I think it's
Yeah.
because they like knowing who they're hiring as a person beyond the weddings. I mean, again, I know a lot of people run their business differently and they're very much like, I'm not going to post personal stuff on stories or on my feed, but I get such amazing engagement from people seeing like me antiquing in France or decorating my house or like walking with my dog in beautiful spots or just like gorgeous architecture or art museums. And being able to connect with them on that, I think has really transformed the way I provide any kind of experience because it gives us so much to talk about and it gives us so much to like get excited about together, which is always fun.
I love that. I have been thinking about kind of personal brands in the wedding photography industry a little bit more, especially as I feel like every year since COVID, people have been like, this is a weird year, and I hear
So
people
true.
struggling with bookings or whatever. And honestly, this happened before COVID too. It's always, you've been in the industry for a long time too. So it's always kind of happened. But I have been thinking about the importance of a personal brand if that does feel like something you want to do, just because like you said, so much of the work out there looks pretty similar. And so being able to connect on a deeper level gives a better experience to your couple, but also I think makes you stand out. Like, how do you feel about personal branding in 2025 or, blending some of that together? Do you think it's beneficial?
Hugely. I almost think it's like the most beneficial part or the most important part of your brand overall. I think that people, again, are looking for some sort of connection beyond the photography. It's funny because a few years ago, I shot a wedding at a private estate in Chicago, and the bride had bought this beautiful, like very classic silk satin gown. Um, and she reached out to me a few months later after she had shown me her dress, and she was like, "You'll never believe it, but I actually ended up going to the store and swapping my dress for the like 3D embellished version of this gown because I shoot a ton of fashion week and like bridal fashion, and those gowns are always my favorite. So I gravitate towards them and I always photograph them and post them on like my social media. And she was like, I just keep seeing these beautiful gowns with all this texture and florals and embellishment on your feed. And I love how they're photographed. So I swapped my gown for the like more whimsical one. And I thought it was the craziest thing ever. Like, how incredibly flattering is that to hear that as a person? But also, it just shows that like we had connected at a level beyond just the photography. Because once a client reaches out to you, like, I know they like the photography. They're not reaching out to you unless they like the photos. So to me, there's no reason to start selling yourself on your photography once you've booked them or once you've gotten on the call. It's, to me, at that point, it's like all about personality. It's all about marketing. It's all about the things that you're interested in and that they're interested in.
Totally. And I think like stories and personal stories have that sticky effect. Like, I don't know if you do this. I try to notice if I'm introduced to a new brand or a new company, how quickly I forget about them. You know what I mean? Is
Yeah.
like a new if I'm like, oh, that looks really cool, or that influencer is really cool, and I follow, and then tomorrow, the next day, I forget their name, I forget how to find them, and I'm like trying to look for them and I can't find them. And it just reminds me of how easily we move on to the next thing, how much there is distracting us, and how important like having something that makes you stick out or like become that story that's memorable.
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
It's crazy out there.
It really is. And I just feel like now, especially that everyone has a social media platform, it is so easy to just get lost in the masses. I mean, there are so many people that have amazing interests and are incredibly talented and are like really cool people that would be really fun to work with, but probably get lost a little bit in the shuffle of just, who has the best engagement online or who's posting the most or who has more time to post. So it's like worth noting, I think, when a client really connects with you on a deeper level, because it means that they have made a point to like remember your brand enough not to forget it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, I want to talk to you about the bridal fashion. I know you brought that up of that being a passion of yours and it even connects with some of your clients. How did you get into bridal fashion? What does that look like in your career?
Let me think. So I actually got into it in college. I went to college for photography, and one of my teachers was the photo director of Harper's Bazaar, which was really cool. I loved the school I went to, but they weren't really heavily involved in like the commercial world of photography. It was very much where their mentality was once you graduate, your goal should be to get your work in a gallery or a museum. Like
Mm,
that should be the determiner of whether or not you've succeeded as a photographer. And so I remember that for people who were more interested in like the commercial world where, working with brands or editorials or clients in that regard, we were left a little out in the dust. I don't really think that it was totally catered towards people who weren't interested in going the gallery route. I thankfully went to school in New York and had always planned on moving to New York. I mean, I grew up like 30 minutes away, so it was never a crazy idea. And the fashion industry is huge here. I really think that it is so beneficial that I was able to get established here because I don't actually know how hard it would be to do it elsewhere. And so that teacher actually recommended that I get an internship with one of the fashion magazines during college to try and see if it was something I was interested in terms of, working at a magazine, because at that point I still didn't really know if I wanted to go more the magazine route or like the freelance route. I worked at Teen Vogue for a little while in their
That's fun.
photo department. I loved it. It was really like a cool experience. The thing is, I realized very quickly that anyone working at the photo department did not actually get to shoot for the magazine. It was like they were still outsourcing for photographers. So while I would be online, like scouting locations so that a photographer in LA could shoot Harry Styles against a cool backdrop, like I never actually got to go to those editorials
Yeah.
or shoots or anything like that. So
You're like, dang it.
I know.
So
Into it being like,
close.
yes, I'm going to get to shoot for these magazines. You don't. Honestly, it was probably like 2010, 2011, and they were still working off of binders, like huge binders full of photographers' comp cards and like just pages and pages of like portfolio cards that photographers would mail to them. It was crazy. It's such a different
Oh
world
my
now. I can't even
gosh.
imagine like if I were to go into the offices now and see how they handle their like resource. But I learned pretty quickly that probably working at a magazine was not for me. I wanted to be more heavily involved in the like actual shooting rather than the art direction, which I think that's what a lot of people who like find their footing in magazines go into doing, like a lot of art and photo direction. And so I started getting messages from people because I was shooting fashion work just on my own. I started getting messages from different publications asking if I would shoot Fashion Week for them, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's twice a year. It's in February and September. And then there's Bridal Fashion Week, which actually is a completely different time of the year. And that's usually in, what is it? April and October, I think. And so I shot Fashion Week for a few years. I really did like it. A lot of it was street fashion. And at the time, all the shows were at Lincoln Center. So basically, I would head uptown, for a week straight and go into the Lincoln Center tent where it was like this ginormous tent set up in Lincoln Center with like a million outlets and Diet Coke machines and like blowouts for everyone that wanted them. It was crazy. And basically, you would get like your list of runway assignments for the day, and you would just go to different runways and shoot. And so at the meantime, I kind of started getting into weddings. I think it was a natural progression for anyone that did a lot of family portraits, which I did as a teenager living in New Jersey. I just started getting messages from people being like, our friends are getting married. Do you shoot weddings? And when a lot of the publications saw that I had started doing weddings, they would be like, oh, are you at all interested in going to Bridal Fashion Week instead? And I think the first time I ended up going, I was like, oh, wait, this is so cool. This is what I want to do. It's all of the things that I was so interested in. It's a lot of, obviously gowns and really like high quality couture styles and a lot of like really feminine designs. Also, I have to be honest, there's a lot of younger designers in bridal fashion versus regular fashion week was a lot of older established male designers, which great. But I loved getting to meet and talk to and shoot for these like younger designers, a lot of whom are women who were also just recently graduated school or like very similar in age to us. And I found that so exciting and inspiring. And I found also that like the artistry of the experience was so much more considered in bridal fashion week than it was in regular fashion week, where you'd go into like this dark runway and they'd blast some blue lights and play like really loud music. And that was fashion week compared to like, I remember in the first few years of shooting bridal fashion week, I shot a fashion show on a carousel that was covered in flowers. I did one where we walked into a townhouse here in New York and they had covered the townhouse in flowers, and it was for a French designer. And she had like a bride swinging from the ceiling, and it was just cool. It felt so much more like an art installation, or like they've really considered, again, going back
Yeah.
to guest experience, they really had considered like the overall way that their collections were being portrayed. It's just so cool to see it as like an encompassing thing instead of just, okay, here's the
Totally.
outfit.
Just yeah, this designer Inez DeSanto, she had her whole studio set up with models, and it looked like they were fairies, like there were
Yeah.
trees and lights, and like you would look at each model and they almost looked like they were a painting the way they had it set up. And that is so cool that you walk in and you feel like you're part of a bigger brand statement. You're part of something bigger than just here's the dress, here's the
Yes.
model, it is super cool.
Yeah. I love, and now I've been shooting Bridal Fashion Week for probably about 6 years. I actually stopped shooting regular Fashion Week because I just like kind of lost the drive. I have a lot of clients who are really excited about fashion. And so getting to go and photograph the shows where maybe they got their dress. I have a lot of brides who are Monique Lillier. And so shooting the newest Monique Lillier collection is exciting to them. And they think it's cool to follow along with that. I find it like super inspiring. I think it's really cool to be able to go and see how all of these different collections are created and inspired by different, people and art movements and fabrics. And it's like fun free time for me almost, even though a lot of
Yeah.
it is working for different blogs and stuff.
And you're getting to see the next season's collection, which is so cool. It's like what's going to come out the next year, what the new trends are going to be.
The trend thing is so funny to me because, again, like with the rise of TikTok over the last few years, I really feel like trends have been so hammered into our heads of what's cool and what is like the it thing for weddings. And it's so funny to see because like people now are saying, okay, I really want a basque waist dress. Whereas like by this, probably by this October, I don't know if we'll see any basque waist dresses anymore because it will have been there, done that in the fashion world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll trend
I'm,
out.
yep, exactly. I really think they like last shorter in real life versus online. So it's always interesting to see like how you're going to formulate your own marketing around that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The other thing I've really liked about going to Bridal Fashion Week is I always get inspired by the women who are at the peak of their career in their like 60s and 70s. Because I think I like have always been afraid that as a wedding photographer, I'd like age out of doing this, I don't know.
Yeah.
And just seeing people with these long, beautiful, vibrant careers and just like crushing it later in life, I'm like so inspired. And I think it's just really encouraging that I don't need to be done when I turn 40 or whatever.
That's so true. I just love how involved women are in the bridal industry and especially the fashion industry. Not to discount male designers, there are plenty of incredible men designers, but it's so rare to find an industry so like full of creative women. And
Yeah.
I just think it's the coolest to be able to like work alongside them or shoot for them or even get to talk to them during shows. It's really cool just as another woman in another like industry full of creative women.
Outsourcing parts of my editing process has been one of the best things I've done in my almost 18 years of running a photography business. It's let me free up time to start other side projects like this podcast, and also helps me stay consistent with delivery times, keep my client experience excellent, and even add value while maintaining a high level of quality. One of our podcast sponsors, Imagine AI, has taken it up another notch. Even while I was traveling this last month, I was able to edit my digital work so fast because I had trained Imagine on my editing style. So, no more sitting at home and editing while my family is out doing fun things, exploring the city. I get to be there with them because I've really freed up so much more time. I can do my base edit through Imagine and then go in for finer details and make everything look exactly how I want it to be, mix up my film images, etc. It's really given me so much of my life back. So make sure you check out imagineai.com/podcast to get 1,500 free edits or click the link in the show notes. Okay, I think we should take the like veil down around what it means to shoot bridal fashion or bridal fashion week. Like, what does that mean? Is there a bridal fashion god that is like, Sophie, I hire you to photograph this event? Like, what does it actually look like? And what are some different ways that someone could potentially be involved in bridal fashion?
It's funny because I would say almost one of the most frequently asked questions I get randomly from people are like, right after Fashion Week, I'll get all these messages from people being like, I saw that like everyone in the world was there. Are they all getting paid to do this? And The answer is yes and no. There are paid positions in bridal fashion and there are not paid positions. One thing about fashion is I have found that you are at a slight disadvantage being the photographer, coming in as the artist, because while there are often times where a brand will like reach out to a specific photographer, drive for people to shoot fashion, like so many people want to shoot it that the pool is stacked against you, unfortunately. A lot of times there's always going to be a chance that you're competing with, so and so from the Midwest who's happy to fly themselves to New York to shoot Fashion Week for someone for free. I don't really concern myself, honestly, at this point with like what other people are doing in their businesses. I'm thrilled for them. If they want to do that and it makes them happy, great. The thing is, ultimately, is that like I never want people to go into it thinking it's all this one amazing experience and then come here in person and find out, oh, it's actually an entirely different experience when people are marketing it very smartly. So I think that there are a few different ways that you can kind of get into it. One of them would be to be hired by a designer. So there's always a chance that a designer will reach out to you and ask you about shooting their collection. Again, they come out with about 2 collections a year, one for spring, summer, and one for fall, winter. And they're always going to be showing the next collection. So it's going to be like stuff that's basically for 8 to 12 months out. And there are a few different ways they're going to hire photographers. So one would be to like shoot the campaign. So if they're hiring them to shoot a campaign, it's likely they're bringing all of their designs to one location or a multitude of locations. There's one photographer there who is shooting the models in every single dress. And the goal is to use them for marketing or for, e-com or something like that. Then during Fashion Week, there is the chance that a designer will reach out and ask you to shoot essentially front of house, which is their name for like their photography team that they'll bring in to shoot all of their own images. It's entirely likely and probable that like you're not the only one there. There's usually multiple photographers who are asked to come shoot for front of house. I know sometimes Berta has like 6 to 10 photography teams who are shooting content for them. Or sometimes like you'll be the only one. So there are multiple times when I've gone in to shoot Claire Pettibone and I'm like their only photographer they are shooting for their use. And those are the images that get spread out to Vogue or New York Times or Forbes or anything like that when they're sharing images of the new collection. Then of course there are unpaid scenarios where people are either getting invited or getting access to shows. If you have a friend who's going and you're able to come, those are unpaid usually. So people will just come for the experience and for the sake of being there and for the marketing. Honestly, it's good marketing for me. So I continue to go to a few shows that I'm not paid to be at because I maintain a really good relationship with the PR team. So, they do reach out to me when they're looking for paid positions or to do a photo shoot. And also the case that in the future, if I ever want to get into another event of theirs, it's entirely likely that they'll say yes. And then also, of course, there's the chance that like if I ever need to borrow a gown for an editorial or for my own use, they'll say yes for that too, because we've maintained a good relationship over the years by the fact that I go to every show for them. That is to say, like, I don't always think it makes sense for people to fly in if you're not getting paid for it. But again, whatever brings you joy, do what
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, it probably feels like a big styled shoot and is super fun. I'm such a big fan of pitching yourself, and I've gotten really great opportunities by reaching out to people. Have you ever done that, or do you recommend any kind of pitching when it comes to bridal fashion?
Yeah, for sure. Most of the time when I'm working with a designer, I would say the majority of the time they found me. So it was a case of them reaching out, and even if I've never worked with them before, I just recently shot the campaign for an Indian bridal designer a few weeks ago.
It looked beautiful.
Oh,
It looked
thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you. It was a really long day. It was 13 hours,
Oh my
but
gosh.
it was so fun to shoot. And honestly, I took it because I thought it sounded fun. I don't really get to do that much Indian bridal attire. And I thought that sounded really, really cool. They flew their whole team from India to shoot with us.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was all over the city. And they actually found me. I had never worked with them before. Again, really don't shoot that much Indian bridal gowns. And it was really cool to be kind of like sourced by them for that. I would say there are a few cases of where like I've established a relationship with a designer beforehand, and then I'll reach out and pitch myself and say like, if you need someone for front of house, that happens a lot with Berta, to be honest, because I have a pretty good relationship with their PR team. So usually like once-ish a year, or, if there's a collection I'm really excited about shooting, I'll kind of reach out to their PR team and say, like, I really want to throw my hat in the ring for shooting for you, especially if we have backstage access, because I always feel like that's one of the most fun parts of the day. But a lot of times it is the designer kind of sourcing. But I do think that if you have a relationship with them because, you've used their gowns in a shoot and sent them the gallery, or even meeting them through another fashion week situation, I always think it's worth it to kind of put yourself out there and ask about if they're interested in working with you.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And then with your social media or your website, are you kind of blending bridal fashion and real weddings together, or do you keep them separate? What's your philosophy on that?
So I keep them separate online. To me, clients who are looking to book you, they always are looking to book you for a specific thing. So like, it's the same reason I don't necessarily post a lot of family stuff, because I do think that since weddings are my main business at this point, I don't think that brides looking to book their wedding photographer are necessarily in the mindset of also looking at family photos, just me
Totally.
personally. Whereas the same for fashion, I think that like if a fashion designer is reaching out to me, I don't necessarily think that they care as much about wedding images, especially because campaigns and wedding images are shot so differently. You really have to go into it thinking like, normally I would shoot this bride with her bouquet, but I can't shoot the bride with her bouquet for this campaign because it blocks half the dress and the designer's not going to want that. I do find that a lot of the bridal designers will specifically say to me like, oh, we've used fashion photographers in the past, but we really want the style that you shoot in. I've had a lot of designers specifically say they're looking for something a little more like dreamy or romantic or filmy or whatever like buzzword you can use to kind of describe that aesthetic. So I do think that maybe once in a while they'll take a look through my entire website. However, I do think that they combine like super unintentionally in the way that a lot of my brides are just interested in the fashion aspect.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like they're looking to book someone to shoot fashion images, but in the idea that like they love seeing the new gowns. If I'm shooting and posting like BTS on my stories, I always have brides reach out, be like, I looked at that dress, or I tried that on, or like, I love this idea. What do you think about this? Do you like this colored veil? Do you like the gloves? Do you like the hat? Do you think this is fun? So I love that aspect of combining. Again, it's so fun to kind of like connect with them on a deeper level than just the photography. And because I love fashion so much, it's really exciting to be able to like work with clients who also get excited about that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love when like your personal interests and your work collide and you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, okay, so my clients like the same thing that I like, and that just works out.
Yeah. I think it just builds like a stronger connection between you two.
Totally, totally. Any tips for shooting runway or shooting fashion that you think like someone who's brand new to it, or is overwhelmed thinking about doing it, or gets an opportunity and isn't sure how to approach it, like any kind of best practices for runway work or fashion work?
Yeah. I would say your best bet first thing is to start shooting some work that would fashion designer would respond well to. So again, keeping in mind things like not shooting a bouquet in front of the dress, or things like if the dress has an amazing train, like are you shooting it so that that train is shown off as best as it possibly can be? Because again, when you're shooting a wedding, your priorities are different. It's more about the emotion and the connection. And if she's wearing a beautiful veil, amazing. But like, does that veil need to be entirely in focus and, shot so that you can see the different aspects of the veil? Not necessarily. Whereas if you're delivering a campaign, like there needs to be at least one photo where you can see all of the detail that went into that veil. So I would really recommend like adding some of that to your website, to your social media, making sure that you have images that if a designer were to scroll through or like a PR team were to scroll through, they would understand why you're interested in going. Because I think that a lot of the fashion world, they'll give your Instagram like 2 seconds. You have to be able to kind of capture their attention. And as much as I hate to say it, like there is a chance that they won't always let everyone into the show. So you really want to be kind of grabbing their attention first thing. If you're reaching out to a lot of designers, make sure that like there is notable fashion content on your Instagram and on your social media. Your best bet always is just to reach out to the PR team. They're the ones who are going to accept or deny anyone who's coming to see the show. Keep in mind that Fashion Week ultimately is a buyer's market. It's the priority for them is selling their gowns to buyers. So don't get discouraged if they tell you no, because honestly, as a photographer, you're not their primary target audience. They really care more about the people who are bringing in brides. I do think, again, like it's great once you've gotten on that PR list. So if, you know, a designer says, yes, you're welcome to come, or has reached out to you about shooting for them, the best thing to do is to deliver it promptly. Make sure that, you know, you send the gallery to the designer. Holding content for yourself that you've shot with designers is useless. You've lost a lot of the benefit of shooting Fashion Week if you don't actually share any of those images. And then staying in contact with them, I think, you know, that's always a huge benefit. I think being able to reach back out to them the next year is big if you want to keep going. A lot of times, if there's a situation when I can't go to a show that I've been invited to, I'll send an associate because I want to maintain that they saw that I checked in. And I have content from that show. Even if I myself can't go, it's worth it to me to basically hire someone else to go shoot it for me. But I think the best thing you can do is kind of pitch yourself. Like you said, I think that it requires some bravado a little bit when
Some
you're trying to get
gumption, yeah.
into it. It's also, I think that going into it with the idea that this is not your party is really important. There are a lot of times when I've seen people get very up in arms at shows and things, especially who have not done it before, because they show up with a big flash and then are trying to shoot flash. That is a huge no-no. Or, you know, they'll show up and they'll put their stuff down and then they'll go shoot backstage. And when they come back, someone is in their spot and they're really pissed off. You have to learn kind of like the lay of the land. This is an entire thing that people have been working at for years and years and years, and you're not going to change anything. So your best bet is learning kind of how things work and making sure that you're an easy person to work with, that you're not disrupting the flow. I really think that's important, that you're not being disrespectful or rude to models. You know, obviously, like when they're changing, step out of the changing room. If they're eating or drinking before the show, like give them a minute. Don't be like, I need you to get up so that you can model this for me. And again, like delivering that gallery, I think is really going to round out any experience that anyone has with it. It's all about like making yourself feel approachable and useful and good to work with, and then making sure that like they want you back. That's going to be the most important thing.
Yeah, I love that. I think those are good tips for almost anything too,
Yeah.
like go in with
I know this goes
respect.
into everything, literally everything. You'd be surprised though. I just think that like nowadays it's very easy to get wrapped up in a scenario where we're all our own bosses and we all have this level of like, okay, I have to get what I need. And in a room like a fashion show, I think it very quickly can go south if you are being a little oblivious to like social cues, maybe more so than a wedding where you're obviously the only photographer, because you're elbowing and you're competing with all these other photographers who are just as important as you and also need to get their shots. I wouldn't want anyone to go in and be surprised by that and have it hurt them. So yeah, always err on the side of being self-aware and kind to those around you for sure.
This is like a rabbit trail, but I've always had this like personal ethos. Your brand is so much more than your website or your business cards or your colors or even your work. It's like how people feel when they interact with you. And so I live in a city that I've lived in for a long time, and I'll just say it to Andrew because he can get like a little more frustrated when someone's not being like aware, someone's walking slow in front of him, or if someone's not driving right. I'm like, listen, this is a small town and we are going to be nice to everyone. And also, like, I just think that the way you are in the world is so important. So whether you're on a stage or you're just in a restaurant dealing with a server, I'm like, treat people well, because it's not just for your reputation. It's just like the way to be a good human, but also like it impacts your reputation.
I know. It's so true. I have to like calm down the New York attitude a little sometimes. I feel like there's so many times when I'm walking on the street and like tourists have stopped right in front of the subway, and immediately in my head, I want to be like, that's a great place to stop. And I have to be like, chill out.
I know, I know. Oh my gosh, I love New York. And if you're like from the Midwest or the South and you go to New York, you're like, wait, why are people not being nice to me? But I'm like, I get it.
Have you heard that saying that like in LA they're nice but not kind, and in New York they're kind but not nice? I think
Yeah,
that's true. Like you ask any New Yorker for directions, or like you're lost or your phone died or you need help. Every New Yorker I know is like the fastest to help someone if you need directions, or like if you need a recommendation on a restaurant or something to do. They're so
they're
kind. Like
kind. Yeah.
they'll give help to anyone who needs it. They'll go out of their way. But like they're not going to beat around the bush and be like, "Oh, it's okay." They'll just like tell you and leave.
Yeah. Like, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's just in a rush here. I get it at this point, but like I've lived here now since 2013, but it is true. It's definitely true. I've had to like tone it down a little bit. I feel like recently on threads, people have been like really going off. And I think sometimes I have to be like, don't type everything you think.
I stopped getting on threads as soon as they stopped paying. Like I had a bonus thing for a while where I would get paid when I posted. And I was like, I'll post on threads if I get $200. And then as soon as it stopped, I was like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't blame you. Yeah. I
Yeah.
really don't
What,
blame you.
Sophie, what's your hot take on hot takes?
Jeez. I think one of my hot takes, and this is going to be kind of a lame one, but like people need to stop worrying about what other people are doing in their business unless it's harmful. I really do. So
Yeah.
much of the drama on threads I constantly see, and on TikTok and on Instagram, is people running their business, but also being like, you have to be held to the same standards that I am. There was this whole thing recently about where people were saying, if you're wearing all black, it's cheesy and you don't look professional. And I just don't worry if other people are wearing black. Who cares? It's not a big deal. Just let them wear whatever they want to wear. It's not really a hot take because I feel like it's just more, again, about like being a nice person. I do think that a lot of people are very focused on that. I would say my actual hot take is that if you're not good at marketing, think that it is entirely likely your business is not going to work out. Because to me, there are some people here who are running their businesses who are excellent photographers, like truly, truly amazing photographers, and they're terrible at marketing. And I'm scared that their businesses will fail just in terms of like seeing them online or, meeting them in person. And I constantly think that if Disney World and Chanel and Pepsi and, United Airlines have to advertise themselves and have to market themselves, why do you think you don't? Because
Yeah.
every time
Yeah.
I talk to those people, I'm like, well, when was the last time you posted on Instagram? Oh, 4 months ago. Or when was the last time you posted a gallery online or submitted it for publication? Oh, never. When was the last time, you connected with a planner that you had a good relationship with? Oh, I want to, but I get intimidated, or like I want to post on Instagram, but I never know what to post. I think that is probably my biggest hot take, is that like marketing above anything else is so important to running your own business, that you could be the best photographer in the world. And if you don't know how to reach people, you will not book anything.
That is a really good hot take. And I think something a lot of us need to hear, because I think there's also so much fear around being cringy. There's so much fear around being cringy or not looking luxury enough. Like, oh, if I post this, or if I post something personal, or oh, if I do this, I won't look luxury. And I understand the fear so much. I understand where that's coming from, but you have been in the business for a really long time and you're really successful. Ever stop marketing?
Never. I'm constantly thinking about marketing, to the point of where my friends and family are like, get off your phone. And they don't understand, though, that my phone is my business. Like I need to respond to inquiries as quickly as possible. I need to be posting on Instagram really frequently. I see a notable drop off when I stop posting on Instagram. Like if I get lazy and just don't post it for a few days, all of a sudden my inquiries go from a couple a week to like one a week. And I just don't think anyone who's running their business, in terms of like a business owner, someone who's working to own and run the best business they can, I don't think any of us have the luxury to ignore the marketing. And I'm really in full support of like owning up to your shortcomings. If it's not something that you can do, if you feel overwhelmed by it, if you feel like you're not a strong marketer, hire someone, please. Like I just as someone who does a lot of teaching, it is like the number one thing that I try and drill into people's heads, because I really genuinely, I worry that people don't realize how important having reach is to people, and like where they're getting those inquiries or where they're booking. Obviously, there could be someone who listens to this and is like, all of my inquiries are from so and so's friends or sorority sisters or cousins, and I don't need to worry about marketing. And that might be like the one in a million situation, but I I think that just as someone who understands the ways that social media has changed over the last few years. I mean, I started my business when I was 16. I'm
Like,
34 now.
how old am I?
I know. I'm like, wait, can I do math? That's a no for reference. I don't know. It feels so important to me. It really does feel like that is the be all and end all. And I don't think enough people put enough work into the marketing of their business in order
Yeah,
to just ensure that like you can work off of the work. Basically, I think that like the work that you're doing now, you'll see the results in, 8 to 10 months, 12 months. The idea is that if you want to be able to relax in a year so that you feel like you're booked and busy, you have to be marketing your head off now. And it has to be like really intense. So that's my
totally.
hot take.
No, I share the same hot take. I think the courage to change your behavior if your business isn't looking the way you want it to, like if you're not booking to the level you want or you're not making the amount of money you want, there takes some courage to look at yourself and be like, I need to change something. And then to go and put in the action steps. And I had one of those moments. I mean, think it was like 2017 now, but I was like, things got to change. And I
Mm-hmm.
marketed my booty off for like 3 years, but I saw the impact of that hard work I put in for the next 5 years. Like it was so impactful over a longer amount of time. And then I have to remember not to get lazy, because I think the other thing is when you've been in an industry for a while, the people that are your referral sources for one span of time, they're not going to be that forever. Like the people who were sending me consistent weddings 10 years ago, I shot all of their friends' weddings. And so I went through the friend group and there's no more friends in the friend group. Or the wedding planner is no longer a wedding planner. I feel like there's a lot of wedding planners that don't stay in the industry very long. And so just like always staying open and always meeting new folks and like younger people coming up too. I just see when you get kind of stuck and unwilling to change or unwilling to evolve or unwilling to stay open in your marketing that things get really tricky too.
Yeah, I think it's important too that we think about the fact that marketing always doesn't have to be so cut and dry. Again, going to Fashion Week for me is marketing. Feeding into the clients who I'm excited to work with because they're also interested in fashion. So even if I'm going to shoot a show, like I might be invited to a cocktail party for a designer, I'm not getting paid to go to that cocktail party. But for me to go and say hi to that designer and photograph some of their new collection and, chat with some of the other people that are there, that's marketing. Even things like me going antiquing and exploring different cities and traveling, that to me is marketing because I have clients who are interested that I'm booking people off of that who are also interested in traveling and, you know, going to beautiful places and exploring and things like that. We've talked about things before, how like it doesn't have to just be engage, which engage seems wonderful, but like that is not the only way to market yourself. So if that's not in your budget at this time, like try looking at other in-person networking events. I know there's a few different ones. WIPA is one of them. I know, gosh, I feel like there's a million ones. There's ways to do in-person networking without immediately going to the top. I think that even there's occasional things here in the city where it's like the most chill, relaxed, in-person industry kind of picnic things or meetups or group hangouts or like where we'll all go to a restaurant or a cafe. That's marketing. It doesn't just need to be what you think the traditional form of marketing is. Last year, I actually rebranded and decided to host a kind of little event. Everything that went into that party was marketing. Everything from the
Yeah.
fact that I really love doing flat lays and I really love beautiful papers. So I had a paper designer make me physical, beautiful letterpressed invitations that I sent out to all the guests because I couldn't just email, because to me that's the like antithesis of what my business is about, just to email an invitation.
Yeah.
And the fact that I picked a location that's this historic 1910 townhouse on the Upper East Side, and it was so funny because the room that we walked into, it was all blue with like white French molding, and it was called the Wedgwood Room. And I was like, oh, done, fitting. And that was marketing. And so hiring a florist whose work I really love and love working with at weddings, that's marketing. And inviting all of my friends from the industry and also planners that I like working with and planners that I maybe have talked to but haven't worked with yet, or floral designers or clients of mine who are more than happy to get in a room and sing my praises. Obviously, that's marketing. So I say it's so important, and it sounds a little overwhelming, I think, sometimes when you're like, this is the be all and end all of whether your business will succeed. But I really, really strongly encourage people not to get like so caught up in what the industry basically says, like this is the best marketing, and look into other forms of doing it.
100%. No, I agree with you there. And I love thinking creatively around marketing. Like we said with Bridal Fashion Week, it's such a good example. There's a room with their dresses and a bunch of models, and they bring photographers and they invite all their buyers, like make your marketing artistic too. Why not?
Yeah. I actually had this conversation once with someone because I was doing a one-on-one mentor session, and she is based in the Midwest, and she was like, well, it's all well and good for someone in New York to say like, okay, well, I live in a beautiful apartment. I live in the Upper West Side. I can go walk around world famous museums and antiquing and go to beautiful restaurants. But like, what do you do when you're in, I don't know, Montana or Ohio or somewhere that doesn't feel quite like a big city that is
It's not your
easier to market
brand,
themselves in?
or
Yeah,
you live in
that's
a
a good
place
way.
that's not your brand.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's about curation and about the information that you share with people. So I said, okay, well, every time you do go somewhere that feels like it could be your brand, I want you to actually spend time, photographing that place or taking iPhone pictures or filming content that you can use for the future or establishing a presence there. So it feels like you travel more when you are traveling, instead of just, have sitting there after you've gotten home and feeling like, okay, well, I didn't actually shoot anything. I also think that there are so many ways that you can shoot stuff with a really specific eye. So you say you went to a bakery and got these beautiful pastries. Maybe you like photographed them beautifully on your table, or maybe you went to a farmer's market and got flowers. It's about like photographing things and curating things. You can do that so well, even if you feel like you don't live in a place that is screaming like your brand. It's okay. There are still ways to do it. I think that it does require a little more work. I'm not at all going to say like, it's just as easy as living in Paris or something, because obviously, but I do think that, sitting down and making a list of like local locations that you really love that feel like they represent you, museums or restaurants or salons or hotels or anything that kind of embraces that vibe that you're trying to put out to clients or that aesthetic. There are ways to do it. I just think it'll require a little bit more work because, of course, I know that a lot of people don't live where they feel like it encompasses their brand.
Yeah, yeah. I think those are great tips, and just to think outside the box or focus on a core value that you share with your clients or an interest. I think that that's all super helpful. And I love just that you're encouraging people to focus on marketing and not feel like, I think there can be a perception of maybe people higher up in the industry that they don't market. And I'm like, that's not true. And you just might not be seeing it.
Yeah, it is like a second job. It really is. It's exhausting. It's all, I mean, I'm sure you feel the same because I really do feel like I do it constantly. It's always on my mind. But what is nice too, though, is like the first time you shoot a wedding, it's hard and you feel overwhelmed. And then as you shoot more and more weddings, you find that it's easier because it becomes like habit and you understand what works for you. I feel like it's the same for marketing. So when you first start getting into it and like putting yourself out there and pushing this aesthetic and this look that you're really trying to encompass with your brand, it's hard and you get overwhelmed and it feels like, how am I ever going to do this? And then as you start to understand, like, okay, well, these colors work really well for me. These locations work really well for me. This wording or these descriptions or if people are out of ideas, I always really encourage people to go look outside the wedding industry for inspiration. I don't know if they're everywhere, but sometimes I'll stumble here on a magazine store, which I feel like 10 years ago we had a million of, and they've kind of all gone out of business now that like people don't read magazines as much anymore. But like there's still a few magazine stores around the city that will sell magazines from all over the world. They have like the coolest fashion magazines from Japan and from France and from Spain, and like home decor magazines from the Netherlands and Norway and China. And it just is really cool to be able to look at the way that like these other brands are marketing themselves. Look at things like perfume ads. How do you sell a scent when no one's smelling it? What are the words and imagery that they're using to portray this like vibe and aesthetic and feeling to their clients? It's the same for you. So it takes some brainstorming, but I think that everyone can get it eventually.
I love that. Those are such great action items, some great inspiration for marketing. Sophie, thanks for being on the podcast today. You're amazing. It's always fun
Oh my
talking to you.
gosh. Thank you so much. I love talking to you too.
Well, how can people find you and connect with you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Sophie Kaye Photography, Kaye. And then my website is sophiekaye.com. And if anyone has any questions or wants to chat a little bit about mentoring, reach out to me through my website and I'd be happy to get in touch with you.
I love it. Well, thanks for being on and thanks for tuning in to the Dangerous Creatives podcast. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Dangerous Creatives podcast. Check out dangerschool.com to join our community and support the show. Thanks to our team, Jen Madigan Creative, for producing, and to Fire Choir for our intro music. Tune in again next time, and thanks for your support.